The Heart's Betrayal and Redemption. Part 1. The Quiet After the Storm. Clara stood at the gravesite, her 5-year-old daughter Emma gripping her hand tightly. The rain soaked through their coats as the wind howled like a grieving soul. James, Clara's husband and Emma's father, had died in a sudden car accident just 2 days prior. The world that had once been filled with laughter and love was now eerily silent. Emma didn't fully understand death yet. She only knew that her daddy wouldn't be coming home anymore. The days following the funeral were slow and heavy. Clara, barely 30, found herself thrust into a role she hadn't expected, a single mother. She worked long shifts at the local diner while her neighbor, kind-hearted Mrs. O'Connell, watched Emma. Years passed. Clara did her best to provide love and security. Emma grew into a bright, curious, and kind-hearted girl. But Clara's loneliness lingered like a shadow in the corners of their house. It wasn't until Emma turned 12 that Daniel came into their lives. He was a contractor hired to repair the crumbling back porch. Tall, with kind eyes and a patient manner, Daniel quickly gained Clara's trust. He noticed the tired slump in her shoulders, the way she carried everything alone. "What do you do for yourself?" he asked one day as he worked on the porch, wiping sweat from his brow. Clara laughed. "That's a luxury I can't afford." But Daniel didn't give up. Slowly, he began showing up more often. He brought Emma little trinkets, made Clara laugh, and fixed things around the house without being asked. It wasn't long before he became a permanent fixture in their lives. 3 years after James's death, Daniel asked Clara to be his wife. She said yes through tears. Emma, at 15, accepted him with cautious affection. He wasn't her father, and he never tried to be. But he was kind, stable, and present. Life felt normal again, for a while. Let me know when you're ready for part 2, or if you'd like a full download of all 8 parts at once. Skazali. Part 2. Programa, ChatGPT Skazala. Here is part 2 of your dramatic story. Part 2. Shadows in the Heart. Clara and Daniel's wedding was simple, held in their backyard under a string of fairy lights. Emma wore a pale blue dress and smiled for the photos. But behind her bright eyes was something distant. She didn't know what it was then, only that something felt different now. Maybe it was growing up. Maybe it was seeing her mother so happy after years of sadness. Daniel moved in officially after the wedding, though he had already become a part of their daily life long before. He cooked on weekends, drove Emma to school, and always made time for Clara, treating her like the most important person in the world. By the time Emma turned 17, Daniel was no longer just Clara's husband. He was family. But something began to shift. Subtle at first, Emma noticed how Daniel's compliments had started lingering longer. "You've really grown up, Em," he said one evening as they cleared the dishes. "You're becoming a beautiful young woman." She blushed, unsure how to take it. "Thanks," she replied, brushing it off. At school, boys had begun to notice her. Tall, with dark auburn hair like her mother's and green eyes like her father's, Emma had blossomed. But it was Daniel's gaze that made her the most uncomfortable, because she didn't understand it. It felt different than before. Too warm. Clara remained oblivious, trusting Daniel completely. To her, he was her anchor, her partner in rebuilding a shattered life. But Emma started avoiding him when she could. She would close her bedroom door more often. She stopped joining in movie nights. She focused on school and spent more time at her best friend Lila's house. One night, Clara caught her leaving. "It's Friday," she said, puzzled. "We always do pizza and a movie." Emma shrugged, eyes on her phone. "I've got a project to finish with Lila. I told Daniel." Clara frowned. "Is everything okay?" Emma paused, then nodded. "Yeah, I'm just tired of always being home." Clara let her go, chalking it up to teenage growing pains. But deep down, she felt the first tremors of something she couldn't name. One afternoon, while Clara was out grocery shopping, Daniel came home early from work. Emma was alone in the kitchen, earbuds in as she studied. She didn't hear him enter until he was behind her. He reached for her shoulder to get her attention, an innocent touch, but when she turned, his hand didn't fall away immediately. Their eyes locked for just a moment too long. Emma stood up, the air between them thick and confusing. "I've got to finish something upstairs," she said quickly and fled the room. Daniel exhaled, rubbing his hand across his mouth, as if realizing something himself. That night, Emma locked her door. Part 3. A dangerous shift. Emma kept her distance as much as she could. She buried herself in schoolwork, preparing for her final exams, and planning her application to a university in another city, far away. She didn't want to admit it, even to herself, but Daniel made her feel watched, as though every movement she made was quietly recorded. Clara, meanwhile, was radiant. She believed her second chance at love had saved her. Daniel supported her dreams, helped around the house, and encouraged her to consider opening her own bakery, something she'd always wanted. But Clara began to notice things. Emma's sudden coldness, the way she left rooms when Daniel entered, her growing silence. "Is everything okay between you and Emma?" she asked Daniel one evening in bed. Daniel turned toward her, his face unreadable. "She's just growing up. Teenagers are complicated." Clara nodded slowly, but worry settled in her chest like a stone. Emma graduated with honors and was accepted to university in Kiev. She packed quietly, kept to herself, and avoided saying goodbye for too long. Clara hugged her tightly at the station, tears in her eyes. "I'm so proud of you," she whispered. "Call me every day." Daniel stood a few steps behind, smiling faintly. He said nothing until Emma looked directly at him. "Good luck, Em," he said, voice low. "You're going to do great things." Emma nodded, not meeting his eyes. The train pulled away, and Clara wiped at her tears. "She'll come back," Daniel said, resting a hand on her back. But he was wrong. Emma didn't come home for holidays that year. Not for Christmas, not for Clara's birthday. She called, but the calls were short. Her texts were even shorter. Clara begged her to visit. "Why, Emma?" she asked one night. "Why don't you want to come home?" There was a long silence on the other end. Then Emma said, "Because it doesn't feel like home anymore." The line went dead. Clara cried that night. Daniel held her as she wept, brushing her hair back and whispering reassurances. But even in her sorrow, she felt a strange emptiness in his embrace, as if something had changed in him too. Meanwhile, Emma was not only studying. She was also trying to process what she had felt for years. The looks, the comments, the lingering closeness. She didn't know if it was real or in her head. Until the messages started. It began innocently. Daniel sent her a text on her birthday. "Hope you're doing well. I think about you often." Then, another one weeks later. "You've always been special, Emma. More than you know." She stared at the screen, heart racing. She wanted to delete the messages, block his number, but she couldn't. Part of her needed to know if she had imagined it all. Then came the message that changed everything. "If things were different, maybe we could be too." Emma stared at her phone, frozen. She didn't reply. She couldn't. Her hands trembled. But a part of her, a deeply buried, confused part, felt something stir. Was it validation? Fear? Desire? She didn't tell anyone. Not yet. Part 4, Crossing Lines. The spring of Emma's second year at university was meant to be filled with lectures, late-night studying, and coffee with friends. But Daniel's messages continued like a slow, persistent drip, each one more intimate, each one more dangerous. Emma tried to ignore them. She never replied. But she didn't block him either. Some part of her couldn't. It was as if she needed to hold on to the power, the ability to choose when or if to confront the truth. Or maybe, she feared what her mother would feel if she ever found out. Then, one evening, as the sky outside turned violet and gold, Daniel sent a message that made her breath catch. "I'm coming to Kiev for a project. Maybe we could meet. Just to talk. I miss you." Emma sat staring at her screen. Her thumb hovered over the delete button. But her mind was a storm. She knew this was wrong. She knew what he had been, who he still was, to her mother. But the twisted reality was that Daniel had been in her life for so long. He had become a fixture in her emotional world, a forbidden figure she had grown up around. Confused feelings had tangled with her need for safety, attention, and identity. It wasn't love. Not really. But it had the shape of something like it. Against her better judgment, she agreed to meet him. They sat in a quiet cafe just off a side street. Emma wore sunglasses, her hair tucked into a bun. Daniel looked older than she remembered, but still had that calm, confident charm. He smiled like nothing was wrong, like they were old friends. "I didn't think you'd come," he said. "I shouldn't have," Emma replied flatly. Daniel leaned forward, his voice gentle. "I just wanted to see you. You've grown into something remarkable, Emma. You don't even know the effect you have." Her heart thudded painfully. "You married my mother." "I know," he said quietly. "But people change. Feelings change." Emma shook her head, standing. "This isn't right. Whatever this is, it ends here." But Daniel didn't stand. He looked up at her, sad but calm. "I never meant to hurt anyone," he said. Emma walked away. She didn't answer when he texted her later that night, or the night after. She changed her number. But Daniel wasn't done. Back home, Clara sensed something. She'd begun to notice Daniel's distance, his distraction. He barely touched her anymore. He spent more time in his office. He locked his phone, and he never spoke of Emma. One night, Clara picked up his phone while he was in the shower. Her hands shook. She knew she was crossing a line. There were no texts from Emma, but there was a hidden folder of deleted messages. She opened it. She read everything. Her world shattered. Clara dropped the phone like it burned her. Her heart pounded so loud she couldn't breathe. Betrayal, horror, shame. 100 emotions crashed inside her all at once. When Daniel came out of the bathroom, she was waiting. "I know," she said. He froze. "You what?" "I read your messages," Clara whispered. "To my daughter." Daniel closed his eyes, a soft exhale escaping him. "Clara, it's not what you..." "Don't." Her voice cracked like thunder. "Don't lie. Not now." They didn't sleep in the same bed that night, or the next, and by the end of the week, Clara told him to leave. Let me know when you're ready for part 5, where emotions boil over and consequences arrive. Part 5, A House Divided. Daniel packed his things in silence. Clara stood in the hallway, arms crossed, her face pale and hollow. She hadn't cried since the night she discovered the messages. Something inside her had frozen. "You're lucky I didn't tell Emma what I read," Clara said coldly. "I don't want to hurt her more than you already have." Daniel paused, his duffel bag half-zipped. "I never touched her. But you wanted to. And you crossed lines. Emotional ones. She was a child, Daniel. My child. I didn't plan it. It just happened." Clara laughed bitterly. "You think that excuses you?" Daniel said nothing. He picked up his bag, walked to the door, and glanced back one last time. Clara had already turned away. He moved into a small apartment on the edge of town, telling his colleagues it was a separation. No one asked why, but behind the quiet facade, his heart burned with confusion and regret. He tried to focus on work, to shut out the thoughts of Clara, of Emma. Meanwhile, Clara fell into a deep sadness. Her friends tried to help, but she avoided their calls. Her bakery project fell apart. She stopped cooking. She barely slept. Emma noticed something was wrong right away. On a rainy Wednesday, she called her mother. "Mom, you sound tired." Clara forced a smile into her voice. "Just busy. How's school?" Emma hesitated. "It's fine. Listen, has something happened?" Silence. Clara nearly told her everything in that moment. But how could she? "I'm okay," Clara finally said. "Just miss you, that's all." Emma offered to visit. "Just for a weekend. Maybe I can come next month?" Clara agreed. When Emma came home, the house felt different. Cold. Daniel's things were gone. The photo of their wedding was missing from the hallway wall. The emptiness echoed in every room. "Where's Daniel?" Emma asked softly. Clara looked at her. The question hung in the air like smoke. "We're separated," she said finally. "It's complicated." Emma's heart skipped. "Because of me?" Clara turned sharply. "Why would you say that?" Emma hesitated, then whispered. "Because he crossed a line." Clara stared. "He told you?" "No. But he messaged me. While I was at university. I never responded. Except once, just to tell him to stop. I swear, Mom." Clara sank into the kitchen chair. Her hands shook. "I thought I was imagining it," she said, tears finally coming. "I thought maybe I was going crazy." Emma knelt beside her, hugging her tightly. "I didn't want to hurt you. I was ashamed. I didn't know what to do." Clara sobbed. For the first time since it all began, mother and daughter shared the weight of their pain. That night, they sat together, silent, drinking tea as the rain tapped gently on the windows. "We survived worse," Clara said eventually. "We'll survive this too." But none of them knew what was coming next. 2 months later, Daniel reached out to Emma again. He apologized, truly. He said he was in therapy, that he never meant to damage her, or Clara, but his feelings for Emma hadn't gone away. And this time, Emma answered, "Let me know when you're ready for part 6, where loyalty and love collide, and a forbidden relationship begins." Part 6, A Line Crossed. Emma stared at Daniel's message for a long time before responding. "I'm sorry. I really am. I never wanted to be the reason your family broke apart." His reply came almost instantly. "It wasn't your fault, Emma. It was mine. I was the adult. but I've spent the last months facing myself. You deserve to hear the truth from someone who isn't hiding anymore." Against her better judgment and her mother's memory, Emma agreed to meet him one last time. They met in a small park just outside the city. It was early spring, the air still cool. Daniel looked thinner, tired. His hair was beginning to gray near the temples. "I'm not here to push anything," he said. "I just want to talk." Emma folded her arms. "Talk about what?" Daniel's voice was soft. "About what this is between us. About why I couldn't stop thinking about you, even when I knew it was wrong." Emma turned away, tears welling in her eyes. "You were married to my mother. I know. She loved you. She trusted you. And she stopped, voice shaking. "I tried so hard to hate you." Daniel stepped closer, but kept his hands by his sides. "I deserve that. But Emma, we can't change what happened. The question is, what do we do now?" Emma should have walked away, but she didn't. Weeks passed. Quietly, secretly, Emma and Daniel began to see each other. A dinner here, a walk there. Always far from home. Always with a heavy sense of guilt hanging over them. But beneath the shame, something real began to grow, something neither of them could fully deny. Emma told herself she was old enough to make her own choices. That what happened between Clara and Daniel was over. That he wasn't her stepfather anymore. Not legally. But no matter how she reasoned it, the truth stayed bitter in her chest. She had betrayed her mother. Then, one night, Emma's phone buzzed with a message from Clara. "I had a dream about your father last night. He was holding you at 5 years old, dancing in the living room. I miss him. I miss how simple life used to be." Emma stared at the message, tears running down her cheeks. Guilt stabbed deep. She showed it to Daniel. "She can never know," Emma whispered. "Never." But fate had other plans. Emma discovered she was pregnant 6 weeks later. She sat on the bathroom floor, the test in her shaking hands. She couldn't think, couldn't breathe. When she told Daniel, he was silent for a full minute. Then, slowly, he sat beside her and took her hand. "We'll figure this out," he said. "We'll do it right this time." Emma nodded, but panic churned in her gut. They couldn't hide this forever. They would have to tell Clara. Emma waited until her belly had started to show, barely visible, but enough that she couldn't keep it a secret. She and Daniel made the decision together. They would go to Clara's house and tell her face to face. The moment Clara opened the door and saw them standing side by side, her eyes narrowed. "I knew it," she whispered. "I knew it." "Mom, please," Emma began, but Clara raised a hand. "You're pregnant," she said, voice hollow. "Aren't you?" Emma's silence was answer enough. Clara staggered back as if she'd been punched. Her breath came in gasps. "How could you? Both of you?" Tears streamed down Emma's face. "It wasn't planned. It just happened. I didn't mean." "You didn't mean?" Clara shouted, rage and heartbreak exploding. "You didn't mean to fall into bed with the man who married your mother? Who helped raise you?" Daniel stepped forward. "Clara, I never wanted to hurt you. But Emma and I." "Don't say it," Clara hissed. "Don't you dare say you love her." Daniel looked down. Clara turned to Emma, trembling. "You were my whole world. And now, you're a stranger to me." Emma reached out, but Clara stepped back. "Get out," she said. "Both of you." They left without another word. And for the first time in her life, Emma understood what it meant to be truly alone, even when holding someone's hand. Part 7. Out of the Fire. Emma moved in with Daniel the next day. They rented a small flat near the edge of the city, far from familiar streets, far from the bakery Clara never opened, and far from the life Emma had shattered with one choice. The silence from Clara was unbearable. Emma texted, called, wrote letters. All went unanswered. Daniel tried to comfort her, but Emma often found herself crying in the bathroom, whispering apologies to the mirror. The pregnancy progressed quickly. Twins, the doctor said. A boy and a girl. The irony stung. Clara had always dreamed of having twins. Despite everything, Daniel was attentive. He took parenting classes, cooked for Emma, rubbed her back at night when she couldn't sleep. He was trying, truly. But something always hung between them, an invisible line that had never quite been erased. The birth came early, 7 weeks premature. It was a stormy night when Emma was rushed to the hospital, clutching Daniel's hand as pain shot through her body. Hours later, under fluorescent lights and surrounded by machines, Emma gave birth to 2 tiny, fragile lives, Olivia and Leo. They were rushed to the neonatal unit. She didn't even get to hold them. The first week was agonizing. Emma barely slept. She sat in the sterile NICU room, staring through the glass incubators, humming lullabies her mother used to sing. Nurses came and went. Daniel sat beside her when he could, but Emma often found herself alone, lost in thought. Then, one morning, she woke up in the hospital chair to find a bouquet of lilies on the table. No note, but she knew who they were from. Clara. The next day, Emma came back from the NICU to find a blanket draped over her shoulders, crocheted by hand, pale yellow and soft, her mother's handiwork. And the next day, she found a familiar thermos of homemade chicken broth, Clara's recipe, still warm. Emma broke down. She called again. This time, Clara answered. There was silence at first. Then Clara's voice, soft but firm. Are they okay? Emma wept. Yes. They're tiny, but strong. Like you. Another silence. Then Clara said, I want to see them. When Clara walked into the NICU the next day, Emma was already crying. The sight of her mother, older, wearier, but still fierce, was too much. Clara didn't speak. She walked straight to the incubators, looked down at Olivia and Leo. Her hands shook as she reached through the tiny holes in the sides and touched their tiny arms. Then she turned to Emma. I don't forgive you yet, she said, but I can't punish the innocent. They need a grandmother. Emma nodded, tears streaming down her cheeks. Thank you. Clara sat beside her, and for the first time in many months, they just breathed the same air. No accusations, no defenses, just a fragile beginning. Daniel came in an hour later. When he saw Clara, he stopped cold. I didn't come for you, Clara said flatly. I came for them. And for her. Daniel nodded, pain flickering across his face. I understand. Clara turned to him, her voice low. You broke something sacred. You took advantage of love, twice. And no matter how happy you think you are now, that truth will never leave you. Daniel didn't respond. He simply lowered his head. But Clara looked at her daughter, and then at the two babies behind the glass. They didn't choose this story, she said. But maybe, if we love them right, we can still give it a better ending. And for the first time, hope returned to Emma's eyes. Let me know when you're ready for the final part 8, where the past finds peace, and a future full of love is finally born. Part 8, a new chapter. 3 months later, Olivia and Leo were finally healthy enough to come home. The flat was small but warm, filled with baby clothes, soft lullabies, and the kind of chaos only twin infants could bring. Emma barely slept, yet she smiled more than she had in years. Her heart, though scarred, had found purpose. Clara visited twice a week. She never stayed long. Her relationship with Daniel remained cold, polite at best. But with the babies, she was radiant. She fed them, sang to them, and told them stories of their grandfather James, Emma's father. Emma noticed something subtle happening. Though Clara rarely spoke of the past, her presence became steady, healing. She never said, I forgive you. But one evening, as she rocked Olivia to sleep, she said softly, You're a good mother. Emma's throat tightened. You taught me how. Daniel kept his distance when Clara was around. He sensed the wound was still open, and he didn't push. But with Emma, he was devoted. He changed diapers, read parenting books, woke up for midnight feedings without being asked. He wasn't perfect, far from it, but he was there. Still, the weight of what they had done never fully disappeared. It lingered in certain silences, in the eyes of old neighbors who no longer greeted them, in the glances Clara sometimes gave when she thought Emma wasn't looking. But slowly, the sharp edges dulled. On Olivia and Leo's first birthday, Clara hosted a small gathering at her house. Balloons, homemade cake, laughter. Emma stood in the same backyard where her mother and Daniel had once exchanged vows, and now held her daughter, born of a love that had shattered everything. Clara raised a glass during the toast. To the messes we make, she said, and the grace we find after. Everyone clapped. Emma cried. Later that night, after the guests left and the babies were asleep in portable cribs, Clara and Emma stood in the kitchen, watching the candles flicker low. You were 16 when I lost your father, Clara said, and I thought I'd never love again. Then Daniel came. I thought he saved me. Emma looked down. I never meant to steal him. I don't even know how it happened. Clara touched her hand. He wasn't stolen. He drifted. We all made mistakes. But you gave me these 2-inch, she smiled faintly. And through them, I get a second chance too. Emma hugged her mother, long and tight. That night, for the first time, Clara stayed over. She read to Olivia. She rocked Leo to sleep. And in the quiet of the nursery, she whispered to them both, "You come from broken places, but you are whole. You are loved." 5 years later, the twins were racing through the garden, laughing and covered in mud. Emma sat at the patio table, sipping tea, watching them with a tired but content smile. Daniel was inside, prepping lunch. Clara arrived with a new set of storybooks, her gray hair tucked into a scarf. "Grandma," the twins squealed. Emma stood and opened her arms. "Mom." Clara hugged her daughter tightly. "They're growing too fast." Emma nodded. "Like we all did." They sat together, watching the children, no longer weighed down by the past, but still shaped by it. They had found their way, not to perfection, but to peace. Love had broken them, but love had also stitched them back together. And the story they lived now? It was messy, beautiful, true. The end, Yellow Heart.